and I am going to be reviewing our unit plan. So we just did a unit plan, 4 days of mental, social, emotional, and physical health. So this is review for our exam, and I'm outside because I think it's important that you know that not only do I preach this stuff, but I really believe that I live it. So I believe that in what I taught you, that these are all interrelated. So healthy mental, social, emotional, and physical health create a healthy well-being and overall health for your body. The very first day, that's what we discussed, how they are interrelated, and we identified some stresses. So one of the most important things that we discovered about stress was that it was very, very normal. Stress is normal. It's how you deal with your stress that will make a difference in your overall health. Deal with stress in a positive way. So those are the things that we discussed about stress and your overall health well-being. If you'll remember, we pinpointed some stresses and we kind of labeled them. So these are some things that we discussed about what might be school stresses. About school stress. And then again, everyday stresses. So you'll want to remember these and for the exam. Parent and teacher stresses. So those were the stresses. And then you remember, not only did we just leave you hanging with the stresses, but we discussed coping skills. So how to deal with stress in life, right? Because you can't just let it hang, you got to get rid of it. The number one coping mechanism for stress is, y'all should know by now, exercise, okay? So all of this, again, important to remember for your review, for your exam, exercise, all various kinds of exercise for coping skills, and talk it out. Was another. Be kind. Manage your time. Second to exercise is managing your time. Can create a lot of stress and a lot of problems in your life if you do not learn how to manage your time. Use your planner. Listen to music. We discussed that helps a lot of people. And breathe. Remember we practiced the breathing technique in class. Okay, so coping skills is a very important part of dealing with the stresses. Recognizing that you have stress, recognizing where it comes from and what causes it. Okay? The second day on our lesson, we moved into emotional health and various emotions. On those emotions, remember we categorized that into 3 separate groups after we first discussed the definition of emotions. And if you'll remember, these were our little packets. We all divided up into 5 groups. Everybody had their own color. And then within each group, we labeled 3 different emotions. We stuck with some basics: happy, sad, and mad. And then we had 5 representations of emotions for each group. So not that you have to remember all 15 emotions, but you will need to know some emotions and give me some examples of triggers of those emotions. And then going back to your coping skills on how you deal with those emotions, how you release them. Emotional health affects your overall health, same as everything else that we discussed in this unit. It all refers back to that part. It is very important to remember that your emotional health not only affects you, but it really affects the people around you. So if you're happy, they're happy. If you're angry, most likely they're going to be angry. If you're sad, people are going to be sad for you. So it affects everybody around you. Positive attitudes can create positive attitudes. Okay, so our next day, we dug a little deeper into our social health. We started this unit by discussing the definition of social health. And then we broke this unit down into 3 steps. So step 1, remember we started with social health in relationship to how a person gets along with other people. Step 2 was social health in relationship based on a person's level of support from people and institutions around them. That was 2. And 3 was how well society is at giving every citizen equal opportunity. So in that, you'll have to know that, examples of that, and remember that social health is also a very large part of your overall health well-being. It's not only important that you respect yourself, it's important that you respect others. Going back to Dr. Simpson's sociology class, you don't have to agree with what everybody does, and you don't have to like everybody, but you do have to treat everybody with respect. And that kind of falls under our social health category. Okay? And there are stresses for social health, but we have our as in all of these units we discussed, we always went back to our coping strategies. The very last day of our lesson, we had 2 parts of that lesson. The first part of that lesson was mental health. So in our mental health, also again, a part of our overall well-being, our overall health, the very first thing we discussed about mental health was the definition of mental health and what it was, and how it relates to our well-being. We went on to discuss some examples of mental health. We focused a lot on anxiety. So we took a couple of examples, right? We took a stressor from our stress pile, which was test taking. And then we took a poor coping skill, which was managing time. So if you stress out about test taking, or maybe you're just not a good test taker, or maybe you are a good test taker, you still just stress out about it, and you're a poor time manager, remember how we correlated that with anxiety and stress the night before the test because you're cramming, you stay up late, and you don't get enough rest. And that builds pressure in your body, and that pressure turns into an unhealthy anxiety, which focuses on your mental health. So we want to alleviate all that mental health stress and pressure by focusing on our stressors. So if that is your test taking, then we want to focus on then the coping strategy for test taking, which is time management. And we want to get our overall mental health in good shape. So our overall health is our working good. So those are our examples that we used for that. Then the second part of the day, we focused on physical health. Again, starting on physical health, we started with the definition of physical health, what that means. Then we took a little bit of a different turn with this, and we went outside of our classroom with this and outside of our own personal examples, and we went national with this. So remember, everybody had their handouts, we broke into our groups, we started with our national population of overweight people. So 1996, remember our statistics, 10 to 14%. Then when we get back here to 2010, we have 20 to 30% of our population overweight. And remember what our estimated overweight population will be in 20 years from now. Remember how we got there, how we became such an overweight society. Remember there were portion sizes and the quality of food that we're eating. Remember we discussed some of our personal choices that we're making, what we're doing with our time, screen time, whether it's social networking, video games, talking, texting, also television time. So some of our personal choices that we're making. And we also discussed some of the health side effects of our physical health. And then, of course, we discuss how you can fix it, okay? So remember what those were, all right? Because all of that will also be a part of your exam. So physical health affects your overall health, your overall well-being. I know you guys are probably tired of me saying that because I've been saying it all week, but it's super important, obviously, or I wouldn't be taking the time to teach it to you. So physical, mental, emotional, and social health are all interrelated. Stress is normal. Everybody has it. Some level of stress, they say, actually is very healthy for you. It's how you deal with the stress that makes a difference in your overall health. Thank you. I hope you've enjoyed the lesson as much as I've enjoyed teaching it. Please be recording.